Well, folks, it's time to talk about some more custom cards. And this time around, you designed Battlegrounds Buddies if they were regular, traditional Hearthstone cards. Like Magnus Manastorm here, Millhouse's buddy. He's a 4-mana 4/4 from Lycan Shadow. And he reads, start of game. If this is in both players' decks, spells cost 0. And I totally love it, dude. Taking the Nozdormu effect, but making it even crazier. Who needs 15-second turns when you can just have 0 mana spells? And I mean, I think that's such an absurd sort of payoff that whoever goes first might just like instantly win the game. Like there could probably be some easy OTKs, just run some Pyroblasts and tons of card draws and stuff. But it might be fun to just do a little bit of a coin flip simulator and see what happens, see if you can't somehow manage to eke out a victory with Magnus. But I like this both from like a, playing against your buddy, putting it in your deck, your buddy, since these are Battleground Buddies, but challenging a friend with this your deck could be really fun, kind of change the rules sort of thing. We've always talked about having a sandbox mode in Hearthstone, and if they can't design like a technical sandbox mode, they might be able to design cards like this, where they could make a cycle of these, like 5-10 different versions of these cards as some kind of like special bonus set that each change the rules of Hearthstone in some way or another. And I think that'd be really cool. So is it a competitive card? No, of course not. It'd be ridiculous and nobody would run it. It'd be impossible, just too risky. But is it a fun card? Does it break the rules of Hearthstone? Do I want to see this in one way or another? Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up for Magnus Manastorm. Moving on to something a little more traditional here. This is Killwreck from Minivat. This is Jiraxxus's buddy, of course. And 4-mana 2/6 demon with taunt and battle cry for the rest of the game. Your imps have +1/+1. So some like legitimate imp synergy. We've got a few different like demon synergy cards and a lot of imp summoning stuff, but I wouldn't say there's been that centerpiece that's brought all that together for Warlock, but certainly a card like Killwreck could do exactly that. Now, from a design standpoint, right, this is a really cheap rest of game effect with like no condition, no quest. So that sort of thing always makes me nervous, because the payoff could be pretty substantial, getting big boards basically for free for the rest of the game. I don't know if he himself is an imp. He looks like an imp, so he might even realistically come down as a 3/7 himself, but maybe since he doesn't have the word imp in his name, he wouldn't count. But anyway, like that's a really big payoff. It has that kind of Keleseth effect where it's like, oh, if I draw this, my deck is 1,000 times better, and I probably win the game. And if I don't draw this, then maybe my deck sucks. That's not always rewarding from a design standpoint. It feels like it can create blowouts, but from a theme and like synergy payoff, this is the sort of card I'd like to see Warlock get to make all these imp cards actually come together into a cohesive game plan. So next up here is the Junior Street Magician from Cello. And this is really the first of these cards that I think references the buddy itself in Battlegrounds pretty closely. Most of them kind of take the character or have a very loose reference. Like Killwreck is kind of Jiraxxus's hero power. Magnus is like, cost/mana manipulation. And Junior Street Magician's like legit very similar to the buddy, just made to fit into Constructed, because when this dies, as Death Rattle, put 2 random secrets from the past from any class into the battlefield. And that's more or less how it works for Akazamzarak in Battlegrounds. He's got access to various different sorts of secrets, so the from any class condition here makes sense. And this is a neutral card, which is kind of cool to get secrets available to everybody. And I like the from the past clause as well. That's something I really miss in Hearthstone. I think it's nice when Standard dips its toes back in limited cases to older cards. Not to mention, this is a cool different direction for Death Rattles. Most Death Rattles in the game right now are like deal damage or summon a thing, and this is kind of a different vector to approach Death Rattle. So it'd be interesting to see how decks could utilize this. Maybe Secret Hunter with secret synergies and Death Rattle synergies could fuse together, or maybe just Priest with secrets could be a really interesting thing to see, and I think Junior Street Magician would offer that opportunity. So next up here is the High Botanist Talarn from Kogeti, and this is Omu's buddy in Battlegrounds. This one's a 10-mana 9/7. And Battlecry, this game, your spare mana crystals are summoned as 2/2 treants at the end of turns. We've got another spare mana card, some untapped potential synergy here, but way late in the game here at 10 mana, which is kind of the spot I think you want non-conditional this game effects to exist. Like we said before, 4 mana is pretty cheap. Now, for Druid, of course, 10 mana isn't too far off from 4 mana, but at least a little bit of a check and balance there on this one. But this is a really cool idea, right? Like, with Guff in the game in particular, getting up to 20 mana, sometimes you have a lot of spare mana at the end of the turn. Not really sure how to utilize that, what to do with it. It can feel like a waste. Just slap Talarn into your deck. Suddenly, lots of bonus treants, right? Sometimes maybe just end of turn because you just want to get like a full board of treants. Maybe just hero power end of turn and you're good to go, and that's all you really need to get out of the game. But very much creates, I think, a win condition in the late game because you basically have like infinite boards. So it might still be too good, right? Because once Druid gets moving, 10 mana is not that much. It doesn't have a condition. This feels like something that would be more like a quest reward, perhaps, where it takes some build up, takes some commitment to actually get this there. Because, you know, you build enough token synergy stuff in your Druid deck, which isn't hard to do, few Arbor Ups and such, you're going to overwhelm people with all these treants. But I think it's a really cool way to pay off Guff and big mana cards. So some tweaking on the balance and stuff, and this feels like a really nice card. So before we move on to our next card, let's talk about our sponsor for this video. It's Keeps. That's right, if you didn't know, 2 out of 3 dudes will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. I say this every month, but I'm creeping up on the number. I'm now 3 months away from being 35. But the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have some hair left. And with Keeps, you can get treated right from home. You don't have to go visit the doctor. You can talk to one online and get your hair loss medication sent right to your door, making it super easy to be greedy in Battlegrounds or in Constructed like our good buddy Gallywix behind us. So if you're noticing that you're losing your hair, you can do something about it for a limited time. Go to keeps.com/Regis or click that link down there in the description for 50% off your first order. All right, next up here's another version of Magnus Manastorm, a particularly popular fellow for the creators out there. This is Here It Comes' card. 10 mana, 4/4 Magnus. 10 mana, by the way. It's so sick. Battlecry. Your arcane spells cost 0 next turn. Uh-oh. I like the little flavor addition there. That's always fun. So this actually takes the kind of Millhouse effect and makes it good for once. Unlike the previous Magnus, unlike OG Millhouse, this one actually has some pretty cool payoff. And presumably, you know, if your arcane spells are going to be 0 mana, you're going to win the game, whether that's through some combo enabler like Mozaki or just like, you know, slamming people in the face and drawing a billion cards. This sets up kind of a 2-turn win condition. So get to 10 mana, create that payoff. Now, I don't like cards like this, for the record. Like, I wouldn't want this to be in Hearthstone. I don't want that like 1-turn clock hanging over my head. It's like, oh God, they played Magnus, or oh God, they're gonna play Magnus. Can I win the game? I don't like those do or die sorts of situations all that well. I would say, like, you know, in 3 turns, your arcane spells cost 0 or something. So there's like some time or some countdown aspect to it. Maybe 10 mana would be too expensive in that case, but, you know, something to hedge a little bit on the crazy power spike potential that this offers. That said, I recognize I'm not the only person playing the game of Hearthstone. I thought it was still a really cool design to kind of flip the script here on the Millhouse effect and make it good and make it big and make it scary. Uh-oh, indeed. All right, next up here is Jandis's Apprentice from Anonymous. And believe it or not, this is Jandis's buddy in Battlegrounds. 5 mana, 4/4, start of game. If your deck has only duplicate cards, duplicate your deck. So this is the reverse Reno sort of deck here. And the only duplicate aspect is important because that does mean you don't have any legendaries. You're basically running a deck with no legendaries. But if you do, you can get twice as many cards in your deck. Now, there's a big question there. Why would you want twice as many cards in your deck? You know, fatigue protection, for instance. Like, you could play forever and never run out of cards because you're going to have essentially, you know, 50 card deck or whatever at the start of the game. That's not usually a great strategy in Hearthstone. Normally, bigger decks are worse. You kind of want a dense deck with good cards as often as possible. So you want to make your deck smaller. But, you know, this doesn't actually hurt your density or consistency of the deck because you're still going to have the same likelihood to draw the cards that would be in there. So there could be ways where if you like, you know, arrange your deck, if you like Polkelt, for instance, and you want extra super awesome like 6 mana cards or whatever that are like win condition cards, you could do that because you'd have 4 of your super awesome 6 mana card at the top of your deck via Polkelt, right? So there are ways this could benefit you with like deck manipulations and draw manipulations. If you have like minion tutors, you want 4 super awesome versions of that minion as opposed to, you know, normally you'd only get 2. There are ways to do that where the bigger deck doesn't really matter, but you're just creating extra versions of the things you really care about. So I'd be really intrigued to like how to make this good, how to make it relevant, how to make it an important card. But I mean, that's an opportunity, right? That's a way to have deck building shine, add some strategies in there. So cards like this existing are pretty cool in that regard, I think. Moving on here to Master Gadrin. This is who? Vol'jin's buddy, I guess, in Battlegrounds. This is from Chegwin. It's a 3-mana 3/3 Battlecry. Add a friendly minion that died this game to your hand. Teach it the next spell you cast. So I don't think this has anything to do with Vol'jin in Battlegrounds, right? I'm trying to think. I don't really see how, but I think they just took a cool character and art here and built a flavorful kind of hexy, shamany, priesty guy, voodoo priest guy out of it, which I'm cool with that. And inspiration there is more than enough for me. But this is a cool effect, right? Because it's adding for the minute that this game you can teach it the next spell you cast. That is basically the kind of Hagatha effect of old, where she would create that monstrosity dude and teach it a spell. But you get a little bit more control in this case because you can create some perfect minion with a really ideal spell, whatever that might be, right? Some high cost spell, some high value spell. You teach it to the minion on demand when you want. Also, this kind of has like a raise dead built into it as well, right? Because you're getting minions back that you care about. So I think it's neat to like imagine the different sorts of minions and game states and scenarios where you could create something really awesome and powerful, right? Like some spell damage baked into the minion with some kind of crazy spell payoff, for instance, comes to mind. But I'm sure there are even more absurd and cool combinations. If you can think of a cool one in the comments, I'd love to read that, right? So share your crazy Master Gadrin creations and perfect board states and scenarios, because I think this card could do some pretty cool stuff. Next up here is Dranosh Sourfang from Kogeti. This is a 6 mana 9/5 for Warrior. I love these weird stat lines. I think that might be a stat line in Battlegrounds as the buddy. He is, of course, Sourfang's buddy. I think it's his son as well in Warcraft, and there's a pretty cool reference here in the effect. Battle cry for the rest of the game. There's been a lot of rest of game effects here. Frenzy effects also activate on death. So basically getting an extra proc for your frenzy effect. So Kresh, for instance, anytime he got frenzied, would take, gain 8 armor for you. And then when he died, he'd gain another 8 armor, making Kresh a 16 armor monster, which actually sounds delightful. Samuro, for instance, like could be a big board clear. I guess even if he dies, the frenzy effect would still go off and like kind of do a big 2-part hit to the opponent's board. So be careful when you kill that Samuro. And then I was looking at other frenzy cards. There's one that's like, maybe this is broken. Gruntled Patron. I'm gonna pull it up here on screen real quickly. Summon another Gruntled Patron on frenzy, but that also means after it dies, it summons another Gruntled Patron. Does that effectively turn it into like a Wax Rager type card where when you kill it, it just immediately comes right back? Perhaps even when silenced, based on how this works. I don't know. Maybe the first frenzy has to go off for the also here to be relevant for Dranosh. Obviously, we don't know how this would work because it's a custom card. But anyway, I think it's pretty cool. Great upside for Frenzy. Frenzy didn't really quite get there as a keyword. This would definitely help. And on top of that, it's a cool reference because this guy turns into a Death Knight. Spoiler alert for 20-year-old lore. He turns into a Death Knight, and this is a reference to like the Sourfang side of things, Frenzy, and then also the Death Knight side of things, getting these same effects when minions die, as if they were kind of like resurrected or Death Knights or something. I think that's actually pretty cool. Very subtle sort of flavor, story, lore hint there built into this effect. And then finally, our last card is Firez. That is Zephyrus's buddy, and obviously a rearranging of the letters there for Zephyrus. 2 mana 2/3 from Ace. Battle cry. If your deck has no duplicates, discover a copy of a minion in your deck twice. So this one's actually a really nice reference to how things work for the Battlegrounds Buddy and Zephyrus mechanic, where you're helping to discover triples essentially in Battlegrounds off of both their hero power and the Buddy effect here. And that's also really cool in constructed Hearthstone for Reno style decks, Highlander decks, where you don't have duplicates. This gives you a way to get extra versions of really cool minions. And, if you think about Reno or Zephyrus, this could get you an extra Reno or Zephrys, or just like, you know, say a Mordresh, for instance. Build a Highlander deck where you just want extra win conditions. This gets you extra win conditions, even if you don't have all the other Highlander support cards that we've seen in the past. But this could be the kind of thing that comes in and maybe is good enough to kind of establish some Highlander decks. I don't know if it'd be quite good enough to duplicate win conditions. That might be unreliable because you're just getting a Discover choice, right? But if you only had a few minions and mostly spells, you could tutor the minion essentially effectively here to get extra copies of it. So maybe it'd be good enough, but certainly alongside other complementary Highlander cards, I think Fire-Res would be actually a pretty cool tool, a way to get some extra awesome stuff out of your deck and just another nice piece of the Highlander puzzle. So I would certainly welcome the return of Highlander to Standard. I actually miss it a lot. Cards like this could help achieve that. And there you go. That wraps it up for this custom card review of alternate versions of Battlegrounds Buddies. I gotta say, I liked a lot of these designs pretty well. Even if they weren't super referential to the buddy effects themselves, still a lot of inspiration from the artwork and characters and so on. Now, if you want to submit cards for the next custom card review, there will be a link down in the description. The theme next time is to make me a huge minion. I want a big boy. I want it to be a 20, 20, 30, 30, 100, 100. I don't care. Make it work. Make it balanced. Make it sensible. But make me a gigantic freaking minion. So I look forward to seeing those. Thanks much, everybody, for watching. Check out our sponsor again using that link down there in the description. And until next time, game on.